chew the fat and give our gut reactions on all things pop culture, film, TV and theatre. We talk to legends in the creative industry and those on the rise. We game old school. We support independent creatives. Got a project? Tell us about it. Get in touch. We do all of this, and a whole lot more. Like, subscribe, get involved. Join Lance Steen, Anthony Nielsen, and the Outcasts Creative. We talk to the legends of the creative and entertainment industry. We talk to those on the rise. Lance Steen, Anthony Nielsen asks about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. This is Outcast Creative, and this is Industry Interviews.
What a hectic week it's been. First of all, just a shout out to the late great Val Kilmer, who's an actor I grew up with, and it's a real shame to hear of his passing today. So rest easy, sir. Now, originally we were going to be interviewing Joe Weserac this evening, who's one of the founding fathers of the British rave scene. Unfortunately, he's ill this week, so we had to cancel that. But maybe that was a bit timely, because it was about 24 hours ago when a good friend of mine wrote out a very personal, reflective post about his current position, not just in the film industry, but in life, because of his commitment and his passion to making films, to telling stories. My guest and I have been the best of friends from day one for over 10 years now. We met because of his crowdfunding campaign for his second feature film, which was crowdfunding as a short at the time. And in fact, when I wrote to him, I said, this really should be a feature film, Matt. And he said, yeah, that's the goal. And I was like, well, let's get on with it. So I was one of the sort of big donors on that back in the day when I thought I could afford to help people out and would do that quite a lot. And lo and behold, 5 films later, and he finds himself in a very difficult position in life, as many of us do who are creators. Now, this post resonated so strongly with me, with a couple of notable exceptions. It could have almost replicated my own life word for word, and I honestly got quite emotional when reading it. I think the thing I find frustrating more than anything is that there are bodies all over the world that purport to be there to support independent creative artists, identify them, support them, and help push their career forward. Get behind them as an institution, support them, push them. And I don't ever get a sense that these people are out there looking for people like us who never quit, who make films and do plays and put shows on regardless of budget, regardless of cost, regardless of whatever resources. We are so passionate about this. We still do that. And my guest is one of those people. We are cut from the same cloth. This is why we get on. My co-host for tonight is the inside man who works in the industry and has for over 40 years and can completely relate to the feelings, the thoughts of my guest. And my guest is Australian filmmaker Matthew Holmes, an extremely, I can't tell you how talented this man is. Extremely talented filmmaker, exactly the sort of person that not only the institution should be getting behind, but Hollywood should have snapped him up years ago. Anyway, we're going to get into all that. Here he is. Thanks, Matt, for coming on.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Not at all. And sorry, it's a bit of a long-winded introduction, but there was a few things I wanted to say there.
No worries.
Great to have you on. You've been on the channel before. We did an interview. I mean, I wanted to get you on just to do an interview about your career, and I guess you'll be coming back a third time to do that. But we had you on before specifically to promote the Cost with the Cast of the Cost, which is a great little movie, very kind of blood simple, Coen-esque thriller that you made in lockdown for peanuts. Again with very little support. And when lockdown was finished, even in post-production and getting it out there, very little support. And it's a fantastic little movie, and we had you on to talk about that. But yesterday, or it may have been the day before yesterday in Australian time, just to clear, you did quite a personal post, which has now gone viral. It's been shared on dozens of filmmaking sites. People have posted about it. Critical Drinker read it yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he actually, I can read out to you what he said, because I said, have you read that post?
Love Critical Drinker. He's a funny guy.
Yeah, but quite insightful and knowledgeable.
Absolutely.
And said, yeah, I read it. Sounds like a really shit position to be in. Unable to make a living, but unable to move on and do other things. And I mean, perhaps for the benefit of people watching, and I'll keep plugging this stream because our audience is uncannily low. Normally we've got more people watching live, but most people on Australia are just getting up now.
They are. So they'll be eating their Wheat Bix and Vegemite, and hopefully getting in their car soon, and they'll jump on to listen on their way to work.
I just wondered if perhaps the best way to start this is really for you to read out your open letter to the filmmaking community and industry leaders.
Sure. Yeah. Why don't we do that and see what happens?
Okay.
All right. So here we go. This letter is not meant as a complaint, but a stark and sobering reality check on what it truly means to be an Australian filmmaker today. I want to pull back the curtain on the perceived glamour surrounding people like myself who work in the country's film and television sector. My hope is that by sharing my story, I will highlight a problem that is not unique to me and just maybe somehow help spark a change. First, let me be clear, I never expected filmmaking to be easy. I never believed success would come on a silver platter. From the outset, I knew I would have to white knuckle it for decades and climb the ladder slowly. But filmmaking was my path, and I've never once given up on that dream. But I genuinely believed that the longer I held on, the better I became as a filmmaker, the more experience I gained, and the more connections I made. Eventually, my persistence and hard work would pay off. But sadly, it hasn't really. I'm almost 48 years old. I've been making movies since I was 12. That's 36 years of relentless pursuit. Straight out of high school, I started as a model maker for a local animation company. My foot was in the door. Since then, I have worked harder at filmmaking than anything else in my life. Yet 90% of the work I've done on my own films has been unpaid. The only exception was my last production, Fear Below. But even then, the pay was modest at best, and I worked far more hours than I was compensated for. Not to mention, I received nothing for the 2 years of development and writing that led to the film being greenlit in the first place. To chase my dream of being a film director, I've made some enormous personal sacrifices. I chose not to have children. I avoided full-time stable employment in favor of casual or part-time work, so I could dedicate time to script writing and project development, endlessly chasing film finance. I worked night shifts at a servo in a country town so I could write scripts during the day. I delayed home ownership to remain financially flexible in this unpredictable industry, waiting for my career to take off. Over the years, I've animated countless TV commercials. I've directed, storyboarded, and edited many more. I've had the privilege of being mentored by award-winning filmmakers such as Rolf de Heer, Greg McLean, and Michael Cusack. I've written over 15 feature screenplays and developed a full TV series, all on spec. Only once have I received a grant to develop one of these scripts. 4 of these scripts have been turned into feature films, but only one was properly financed from the outset. The others were self-funded or crowd-funded. 2 films attracted a small amount of private investment, but they were all made on shoestring budgets, with cast and crew working for vastly reduced fees or nothing at all. Even so, that places me in a small, more 4% minority of Australian film directors who direct a 4th feature, according to a recent Screen Australia survey. One could argue that by most measures, I am now a competent and experienced director. All of my films have won awards at film festivals and received fair to excellent critical praise. They have been sold and distributed worldwide to Showtime, HBO, Stan, Prime Video, Apple Plus, SBS, Vudu, Tubi, Peacock, 9Gem, and Foxtel, and they've been released on DVD and Blu-ray. Yet the financial return I've seen personally from all 4 films combined would barely amount to $6,000. My film, The Legend of Ben Hall, has been released in over 22 countries and in 5 languages, yet in the 8 years since its release, I have never and likely never will see a single dollar from it, despite working on it for a pittance for 2 years and developing the script unpaid for a decade prior. Yet despite my films being locally and internationally released, I have never been approached to direct a single episode of Australian television. Every agent I've contacted has declined to represent me as a director. No Australian distributor or streamer will commit to any new script I've written, regardless of its genre: horror, action, historical, sci-fi, war, or Western. I never received a cent of Screen Australia funding until 2022, and only because the producer bypassed their initial rejection, citing the fact that Fear Below had already secured $1.3 million in market pre-sales, which swayed Screen Australia, quite reluctantly I sensed, to finally back it. Fear Below releases in 30 days on major streaming services and in cinemas worldwide. Yet right now, I am unemployed and living off my dwindling savings. My only recent employment has been as a unit assistant on film and commercial sets, amounting to about 9 weeks' work over the past year. I have no idea when or where my next dollar will come from. Soon I'll be looking for a job anywhere I can get it. Because of Australia's housing crisis, my wife and I are now living with my father, unable to secure a rental property. I am back to writing scripts and chasing finance in the very same room where I once planned short films as a teenager, which is where I am right now. Sure, I have 30 years more experience than that bright-eyed kid, but my financial situation is only marginally better. I own more furniture now, but it all sits in a dusty shed at my in-laws' house because I can't afford a rental without proof of stable income. Yet, ironically, I am considered a success story in many ways. I get radio interviews, I'm asked to speak on panels, and I attend screenings of my work to give talks. I've been told I'm an inspiration to younger filmmakers, many who genuinely believe I've broken into the industry and regularly contact me for advice on how they can do the same. I hear in their voices the same naive optimism I once possessed. If I was to give them my honest advice, I'd say forget filmmaking, do anything else because it's just too damn hard. 20 years ago, I asked Rolf de Heer how to succeed as a director. He gave me a wry smile and said, "You need to be a little bit insane." The truth of that statement has finally dawned on me. One really does have to be insane to stay in this business. The plain truth is I have not broken into the film industry. I don't actually believe there is a film industry here, to be honest. I've been fortunate enough to make some movies and have them released, which I'm proud of and very grateful for, but I don't consider myself a success, at least not if success is measured by financial stability and future opportunities. I see myself as someone who fails over and over again, but like some punch-drunk boxer, keeps getting back up for another round. Now I'm barely hanging on, to be honest. I'm closing in on 50. I have no immediate job prospects, and there's little else I'm qualified to do. I have a rare skill set that's taken me over 30 years to acquire, yet very few people are willing to pay for those skills. I'm now preparing another indie feature to be made with a volunteer crew on a tiny budget, like I'm a 20-year-old filmmaker again. This could be the last film I ever make because I can't keep doing this indefinitely. Or maybe, just maybe, it could be the one that finally tips the scales and causes my phone to ring with a golden opportunity on the other end. Who knows? Sadly, my story is not unique. Many Australian filmmakers are facing this grim reality. For every David Michaud or Lee Wanal who lands a next Netflix deal or breaks into Hollywood, there are dozens of equally hardworking filmmakers with their films appearing on your streaming services that are barely scraping by. Many of my contemporaries, talented, experienced producers, directors, technicians, editors, and writers are leaving the industry. Some have permanently left Australia because they can't get films funded or even afford to live here. Others work as landscapers, Uber drivers, cleaners, teachers, and shop attendants to survive between gigs. Private investment in Australian films is nearly impossible to secure. The financial risk is too high, and there's no real tax benefits. Cinemas are dying, physical media is a niche market, and streamers pay very little for content while offering no residuals. Clearly, the system is broken. Government film funding agencies can't fix it despite their earnest efforts over the past decades. I have my opinions on how things could improve, and I'll be sharing them with my local and federal MP before this year's election. But I know any attempt to sway policy will likely be futile. If Australia truly values its filmmakers and screen creatives, then now is the time to prove it. I don't have the answers. I know many good people are trying to find one. But what I do know is this: there is an ocean of wasted talent out there, stories waiting to be told, and those of us who have dedicated their lives to this profession are barely hanging on. And unless something changes, the next generation of filmmakers will find it even harder than I have to survive.
Thanks for reading out that post, Matt, which I know can't have been easy. There's so much that resonates with my personal journey in there. I don't even know where to start. I mean, one of the differences is obviously I've worked extensively in theatre as well, having directed 15 plays since 1998.
Wow.
And in that time, fun enough, this year is the first time another theatre company has bought the rights to one of my shows to put it on. But they're only a company that's the same size as my own. And
but what's that, 25 years?
Yeah, in 25 years. And we have big institutions in the realm of theatre over here. We have the National Theatre, we have the Royal Court, and so on. And then there's also various grants that you've applied for. I write to these people, I invite them to come, and so on and so on. When I started out, most of the people that were the key holders in those positions were probably around my age, when I was in my 20s. Now, most of them are the age that I was when I was starting out,
Wow.
or slightly older, and
Yeah.
and maybe in their 30s or whatever. And it's almost like I've done all this stuff, and I did it all pretty much off my own back. I never had a grant. I didn't have funding. Most people don't do plays without funding. The topics I chose were always socially important. And I thought, I've got to do this play. I've got to do this play about Hillsborough, because Hillsborough's being forgotten, which it was at the time. I've got to do this play about the Marchioness inquiry, which it was being forgotten at the time. No one cared about it, apart from the people that were involved in it, and so on and so on. The Victoria Climbié inquiry, and then I did the post office scandal 3 years before the television drama came out that made it worldwide news. All of these things. Yeah, all of these things I did with basically no pay. It was scrape together what we can, get a load of people to do it for profit share, which basically means no pay, and let's jump on and put the show on. And you would have thought that somebody in one of these institutions, in the same context that you would have thought that someone in power at Screen Australia, would have a kind of proactive role in going out and looking at people who are relentless like us in terms of the passion for telling stories.
Yeah.
And would say, well, Christ, look at what this guy's done with pretty much no money. He made Twin Rivers I think he made that movie over 5 years. Then you made
that's an interesting story about the film funding bodies and Twin Rivers. I'll have to tell you that in the stream coming up.
Yeah.
It'd blow your mind what happened there.
Well, I mean, yeah, and so it's not like the likes of us, and I know there are many others, have been sitting on our ass saying, give me money, we want to go and make a film, or give me money, I want to go and do this play. We found a way to do the play or the film, and I've done films as well, numerous times, with no help, with no assistance. Yet these people, when we then knock on their door and ask them to come and watch these things, just so you can see that we've done it, we're treated as an annoyance.
That's right.
I've gone through the official application process, God knows how many times, for God knows how many things, and no one.
We're a nuisance.
Yeah,
it's like we're just a pain in their butt. Oh God, another filmmaker that wants our support. Go away,
I mean,
they only exist to help us, but we're the annoyance.
Yeah, and it does often feel that, and I've been told this many times by people on the inside, that it's all about who you know, and most of the people that apply for things, it's all about who you know. A prime example of this stuff was during lockdown. I think you remember this story. There was a huge initiative to find new voices, to find new script writers, to people that were talented, that hadn't been recognized before, because during lockdown everybody's got time to write scripts, and I wrote 30 scripts in lockdown, and I polished off the best ones that I already had had them read out loud by actors, knew they were in good shape, and I applied for 4 different categories of this one particular initiative, which Skydance was involved in. And what was supposed to happen was you were supposed to get an email that notified you that your application had been received. By a certain date, you were supposed to get a yes or no whether your application went through to the next round, right? And I applied for 3 rounds of this thing, and every time I had to pester them just to get the email that said, yes, your application has been received. I get they were probably inundated, so I was very polite about it. Eventually, I would get that. And then with the first one, which was a sports drama, you know, so I sent them in this true story African football drama. Great story. And I eventually got the confirmation, but I never got the yes or no, and it went past the date. Went past the date by 2 weeks, and I politely wrote an email saying, "Hey, you know, haven't heard from you guys. Be great if you could send me this thing." And by the way, I've got a screenshot of what happened on my computer. If I can find it, I will. And just seeing if, you know, does this mean I've gone through? But because I was quite excited, I was thinking I'm going to get through to the next round. Got to get. And what happened was they eventually got back to me and they said, "Oh, sorry, Lance, this is what you should have received." And they sent me to the online place where the person was supposed to fill out the no and send it to me. They didn't send me the no. They sent me to the place online that showed the form that the person was supposed to send to me. So I didn't even get the proper response. And I took a screenshot of that so I could show you what they sent me. So, and I thought, wow, that's really poor. And we had to send in a video saying why our voice was valid or whatever. And I thought that was really odd. Why as a writer, why do you need a video of me? Why can't the script speak for itself? But okay, I guess that was a way of them just cutting through the wheat and the chaff really quickly.
Yeah.
But I never got through any of those. And I've got dozens of more stories like that pre-pandemic, going all the way back to 1998. The classic one was sent a script to a particular theatre. I won't say which one. They had a development program going on, and the script got a no. We sent the same script in with my then African wife's name on the front, and we got a call about it.
Interesting.
So my name wasn't sufficient, but stuck her name on, even though she didn't write the script. We got a call about it. So
interesting. Join the dots. Make of that as what you will.
Yeah, that was an interesting one.
I'll tell you the shortened and abridged version of the Twin Rivers story.
Yeah.
4 years I shot Twin Rivers over, right? Put every bit of money that I earned into it. I have 4 years of a film that's shot. It's ready to be edited. And at the time, you know, we didn't have the digital editing stuff that we had back then. It was a lot more. Yeah. Anyway, it needed a solid edit, and it needed a lot of sound work and a lot of post. And I took it to the Film Corporation, and a woman there saw the film. It was actually the partner of Rolf de Heer, who was actually working as staff at the South Australian Film Corporation. And she said, "Matt, we have no program for you to apply to for us to help, but I think we need one, because we're seeing more and more of these filmmakers that are going out and shooting these films on their own. But what they really need is help with post. But we don't have a program for you to apply for. But what we do have here at the Film Corporation is that we have all these facilities. We have a Foley stage, we have sound mixing stages, and we have staff that are working for the Film Corporation running these things. What we could do is set up a program or to apply for that you can apply for, where we won't give you money, but what we'll do is we'll give you facility use to a certain dollar value to get your film post-produced. So it's great. It's not money. It's you get people to work on your film to do Foley and ADR and sound mixing and everything. I said, great. So they created this program because I bought my film to them and I was going to be the first applicant. So they created it. I waited months and I was like, yep, here we go. made my application, and the board rejected it. So figure that out. Figure that out. They created a program for me to apply for because they saw a gap in the space. And the first film, the film that they decided it needed to be made for, they rejected the application, the first one in through the gate. I'll never understand or forgive the South Australian Film Corporation for doing that. And you know who it was that ended up helping me do all that post-production? It was Rolf de Heer, the director of 10 Canoes and The Tracker. He was so disgusted at what had happened. He then brought me into his office, which was downstairs at the Film Corporation. And he said, right, Matt, I'm going to help you. And so he pulled the guys that normally work for him doing his sound. He just called on favors and said, can you help this kid out? And these guys just came on board because Rolf de Heer asked him to. So so there you go. That's I'll never live that one down.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember seeing an interview with him, and he said quite plainly, why are we not helping this guy? This is why we're here.
Yeah.
Did you ever get a satisfactory explanation as to why you got turned down?
Nope. I asked for one. I think it was like it's going off memory, but it was like some sort of bullshit. I think, we just didn't see its potential in the marketplace or something like that. It was just some wishy-washy. Yeah. So
that's pretty lame.
Yeah. Pretty lame. So there you go. That was my first first feature film and my first experience with the Film Corporation. And I think pretty much everything's been a bit of an experience of that since. I did get a little bit of help from the Film Victoria on Ben Hall, but the project was already sort of well on its way before they came on board, and they just gave us a few regional grants because we were shooting regionally. But again, they weren't happy with the script, and they were telling me I have to change this and change that, which I didn't do any of. I just said, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll look at that," and I just didn't do anything. So. But
So, I mean, you've had a pretty incredible response to this post of yours.
Certainly didn't expect that. I wondered if anyone would ever read it because it was so long.
How busy is your email inbox this morning?
Well, it's funny. It's been a hard week. I'm prepping for this indie feature that I've scraped together a very tiny amount of money for. And I'm going out to shoot 11 days to get about 25% of it shot. And to try to use that 25% to go out and get the funding for the rest. And there's my star of my new film right there. That's Josh.
Oh, nice. And, it's nice that it's one of your guys from your first movie. I like that.
Yeah. And I was feeling really bad because, we're dealing with the rent problems and the money problems and when am I going to get paid? And of course, all these stresses. And I felt strangely, a couple of days ago, I felt really overwhelmed. Like when you just get a sense in your body that you just want to share something.
Yeah.
And yet it's all in your mind and you got to get it out. It felt just like something that was on me that I had to just get out. And I didn't know what to do with it. And I just thought, should I record a video of myself? And I thought, nah, I don't want to do that. And I thought, screw it. I'm just going to write how I feel just to get it out off my chest. So I just wrote something and then I read it to Nadia and she thought it was really good. And I thought, I might share this online. I don't know. Maybe it will come off a bit whingy. Maybe it would be a bad idea to say all this stuff. But because of how I was feeling, I just had this kind of attitude of, I don't give a fuck anymore. Fuck it, whatever. This is the truth. This is how I feel. This is what's happening to me. I don't care if anyone judges it now. I'm just going to dump it and I just want to share it. And like I said, I thought I'd put it on my page and maybe a few people might read it and a few friends might be sympathetic. In fact, I didn't really care what was going to happen with it. I just wanted to share it. And very quickly after doing that, it just started. I had Cinema Australia pick it up. I had The Curb pick it up. Screen Space picked it up, and they all just started going, "Hey, can we share this on our website? Can we share this on?" I was like, "It's an open letter. Do what you like." And then the rest of that day, just my inbox didn't stop dinging. I had more friend requests. I was getting like 20 friend requests an hour. I was getting inboxed by strangers constantly. I couldn't keep up. I actually lost nearly a day of work just trying to keep up with all of this messaging. Yeah. And it was just across the board, people going, that was a hard read. I related to that. That struck a chord. This hurt. This is my experience. I had all these people sharing their experiences, which were just mirroring mine. Just another version, just like yours, Lance, a version of my story, but they saw themselves in it. And it just started going viral, and then people just started sharing it everywhere. And to the point, I haven't even read all the comments on all the other posts because I don't have the time. I'm still trying to put together this other indie. But it's definitely struck a chord. And even last night, a friend of mine was sending me showing me screenshots of where it's going in, other countries and so on. And people from other countries are also saying this, like, yeah, it's the same in New Zealand. It's the same in the UK. It's the same in the US.
Yeah, Will Hall's wrote, and I don't know who Will Hall is, but
I don't know who Will Hall is either. I'm not familiar.
But if he watches this, good man, I like this response. He said, "Here's what I sent to Screen Australia in support of Matthew." So I assume he emailed them directly. "Hi, Screen Australia. I just want to make sure this has been brought to your attention as an emerging filmmaker and actor based in Melbourne. I'm appalled at reading Matthew's story. It's very clear to me that industry bodies like yourself are failing the very people you purport to represent." Now, it's funny because you and I had that conversation not long after you and I first met, and we'll come back to that. "Plenty of people in the industry always advise me to be magnanimous and try to give up too many expectations, but food on the table and a roof over a head is a basic. And if you're the industry body, then that failure is on you. If award-winning filmmakers aren't even getting that, then how on earth can you stand up and say you're working for them? I understand there are complex regulatory frameworks and all that bullshit." Yeah, that's a good word for it. "But I know people who work at Screen Australia, and I know their priorities are guided by a pernicious form of physical conservatism. Whether their austere imagination is as a result of unlived dreams of their own is a conversation for another day." Do you like this guy? "I hope you yourselves are magnanimous enough to face up to this, to apologise for failing generations of Australian filmmakers, and to be upfront about your barriers to creating a fairer screen industry in Australia in language and terms that people without law degrees will understand. That might mean sacking some of the well-meaning yet psychopathic private school kids who prefer the ego trip of perpetuating a vapid cultural bureaucracy instead of putting money directly into the hands of creatives. And here's a tip from an underqualified outsider. If you respond to this by saying the media landscape is changing and we don't know what screen stories will look like and we have to be sensitive to foreign investment, then your attention is completely in the wrong place. Focus on Australian creatives and Australian stories. Take risks on unique perspectives from within our own culture. Stop taking cues from the American and British industries who are facing this problem on an even more magnified scale. And yes, they are. I'm living proof of that. Maybe if you stopped licking their arse so much, you wouldn't expect so much arse licking from people who deserve your money. Maybe you would do well to follow some of the advice that is regularly handed out to me by gatekeepers at funding bodies like yours. Give up the expectation of making money from these vital forms of cultural exchange. Give up your expectations that a box office figure is the only measure of success. Give up expecting that making the same decisions with the same intention and acting like spineless sycophants to larger. Thank you. I've got a bit of a lisp today. To larger markets will bring anyone anything of real value. Take a risk on us. Otherwise, what the fuck are you, an office of dry, ubiquitous middle-class gatekeepers who avoid each other on their lunch breaks? You can write a check right now to Matthew Holmes, award him a fucking lifetime achievement award or whatever bullshit you're so good at cooking up, and take responsibility. I stand by the language I've used in this correspondence because sometimes they're the only words that suffice.
You see, where the problem seems to lie is that, you know, there are so many points that have been brought up in that are absolutely right on the ball. You know, there are a series of gatekeepers within these organizations.
Yeah.
And they enjoy the power of those positions, and they enjoy the rejection. They enjoy, you know, these are very kind of mood dependent decisions, or shall we say ideologically driven decisions as well. I mean, we know this. We all know this. This isn't,
everyone knows that.
This isn't any major revelation.
And it's not a conspiracy theory either.
That's
No.
right. That's
No.
right. And of course, you know, they are enjoying it. They're enjoying it just a little bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
And there is something very, very pernicious about their actions, as this, what was his name? Will something?
Will Hall, was it?
Will Hall, yeah, Will Hall.
Yeah.
I think that's
Will Hall.
that's a splendid response. Really splendid response. And
yeah, I hadn't read that one, so yeah, thanks, Will. What's interesting is that Screen Australia, right, will probably, let's just say they get Will's letter. They'll probably go, "What are you talking about, Will? We just put $500,000 into Matthew's last movie. What are you talking about?" And that's true, technically. But the story goes, technically, it's true. They did support the film with about that much production investment. They have so many $1 million a year to put into various films. I can tell you what, that $500,000 did not come because they wanted to support me, because they believed in me. I was rejected that amount after they took a creative meeting with me, and they basically said, of Fear Below, take out the racism and the sexism in your script. We don't like it. I had a panel of people on my Zoom call telling me, they didn't want to talk about anything else to do with the project. They just didn't like the racism in my script. Because it's set in the 1940s. I have a female lead and I have a male Indigenous co-lead. And of course, being the 1940s and 30s, women did not have the same rights and respect as they did today. And certainly in Australia, neither did Indigenous people. And I thought the film gave us the ability to explore those dynamics. And you have these gangsters in the movie that treat these two characters with sexism and racism.
Yeah.
And these are some of the problems that these two characters have to face. But what happens? They overcome those problems. It's, the racism on display is clearly depicted as toxic, as bad. And these characters persevere through it, conquer it. The bad guys get killed. We even had an Indigenous director, the guy who directed Wayne Blair was our Indigenous advisor. He directed that film about the girls, the Indigenous girls in the 60s, the dancing, singing girls. I can't remember.
Oh, yeah. I just watched that the other day. It's the name of the group, is the name of the movie.
Yeah, the Sapphires.
The Sapphires. Yeah, that was good.
We had the director of the Sapphires was our Indigenous consultant, and he said, and I asked him, "What do you think of the racism in this film?" It comes, and he went, "You could go further with it." That's what he said. So then I said to the Screen Australia funding body, I said, no, that would be doing a disservice to the people who suffered through that era to take that all away, to take that out of the script. And they said, no, people don't want to go to the movies and watch a shark movie and be confronted with all of that horrible stuff. And I said, but this is the underlying. This is more than just a shark movie. We're trying to look at these, explore these issues. Oh no, take it all out. And I just said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I made my case very clearly and politely as to why it's important to stay in the script. And I was rejected. They were not going to support the film. It was only because one of the producers went over their head when we were rejected. He went, "Stuff this." He went over their head to the top of the Screen Australia because he had a personal contact to him, told him the situation and said, look, we've already got the films pre-sold. We're ready to go. This film is market ready. We just need this little bit of money to get us over the top. And then that guy made an executive decision and said to the people who were making the decisions, fund this one. But it was done because of the market readiness. And we had $1.3 million of pre-sales on that film. That was unusual for a film to get that many pre-sales in this market. And they were going to reject it. So I don't really feel that they put into Fear Below because they wanted to support my career. They did it because the boss said so, because of the market situation. They were initially going to reject my app, and they did reject my application. So, you know, that's sort of the story behind that one.
They appear to be supremely unqualified to hold the positions that they hold. You know,
they're not filmmakers.
This is a major problem. You know, when you have people that have nothing to do with the movies and just are decision makers on where to hand out a certain amount of money that comes out of their pot, they have no idea what goes into making a film or writing a film, or even in terms of narrative. Why on earth should these people have the positions that they hold? Why?
Their jobs are secure. They pay their bills. They pay off their homes. And the trouble is the glacial speed of applications and building relationships with these places. It is glacial. And no sooner have you met somebody that starts to support you and who pick up your calls.
They're gone.
They've gone to the next government position.
They're gone. Yeah,
they're gone. So you can't. I mean, even the guy that was behind Fear Below, just as we were finishing filming, I rang him up with some problems to share, and he was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, this is my last week." What? I just spent all this time trying to get you on board, and then now you're gone. So, yeah, it's you're absolutely right, Inside Man. It is what qualifies these people, and why do they have all this power over filmmakers who are out there doing the thing? Like Lance, you said, we go out with passion and we make these things happen anyway. But these people who have no skin in the game, they don't. I don't see their films being listed up. They're not filmmakers. Why are these people making the decisions? How are these people being selected? And why have they got so much power over us?
I'd be really curious to know of their backgrounds, their individual backgrounds, and what they feel qualifies them to to be part of these organizations. But they also, I mean, much like the British Film Council that we used to have, they're self-perpetuating organizations. It's almost like they have to justify their existence by having by dishing out the rejections willy-nilly. This happens all the time, but ours was slightly better. The problem is that look, Tony Blair, love him or loathe him, he did create the British Film Council, which was great, and it did help some individuals and some great independent filmmakers, but they were very, very tight with their money. Then, of course, the Labour government, not that I'm getting into politics or anything, but we had a change of government, let's just say, and we had David Cameron, and David Cameron made a very impassioned speech at Pinewood Studios, and funny enough, I was there on the day that he made this speech. I think I was might have been doing Prometheus, I think, but anyway, he was making this speech.
Yeah,
and he was talking about how wonderful the British film industry is, and what this government is going to do is to encourage more filmmakers, more independent filmmakers, and we're going to help with arts programs, injecting money into the film industry, and we're going to concentrate, we're going to focus more on the kinds of movies that are going to be success stories. Although how you can predict success is absolutely anybody's guess.
Yeah.
And then what happens the very next day, literally not 24 hours after his impassioned speech at Pinewood Studios, he closes down the British Film Council. So there's no more funding for independent filmmakers.
What?
So riddle me that. But there are very similar situations. I mean, Matt, I mean, Screen Australia sound abysmal. I mean, absolutely abysmal at best.
Yeah.
And I think
they're a tiny trough. They've got a very small amount of money. There's too many snouts trying to get in, and they just let the same old snouts in, or the kind of snouts that they deem the little snouts. You can come in. They say that they choose films on when you do the application, market merit. You know, is this going to sell? Is this marketable? Will this potentially make? You know, they say all the right things on their form. But then when you really look at what they're financing and they're supporting, it's like, that's not going to make money. That's not going to make, like, you can just tell it's like, these are niche little social justice, and, you know, this is not, where's the support for the films that are actually going to put bums on seats? Where's the genre stuff?
Yeah.
I'm gonna,
my film had proven, Fear Below had proven its market commercial potential with $1.3 million of pre-sales without even a star attached.
Yeah.
And they were ready to reject it. And they did reject it. So therefore, it must be bullshit if they say that market readiness and proof of market readiness is what we'll give it to. Yeah. I gave you $1.3 million worth of proof that it was market ready. And you rejected my application. Now, the head of the Film Corporation, Screen Australia, I think Graham Mason, I think it was at the time, or maybe he's still there. Now, I think he's a film producer. So you have some people up the top who are, you know, qualified on paper to run it because they've been in the industry. But the people at the top don't make these decisions. It's all the little minions who filter and shuffle the applications that make these decisions down the bottom before and push anything up to the top.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Graham Mason didn't know about my application. It was only because the producer went above the other head.
I have a little bit of a theory about some of these people now. It could be slightly, going off at a tangent slightly, but I have a theory about these people that all of them, if not, well, the majority of them, if not all of them, are frustrated wannabe filmmakers that know that they don't have what it takes to become a filmmaker. That they would like to do this kind of work, but they know they don't have the talent. They don't possess the imagination or the talent, the storytelling ability.
They work for film corporations, or they become film lawyers. Yeah. That's what those people do.
Yeah. And that's why they have this this arbitrary dismissal of anything that comes through that is of any merit. You know, I think there's perhaps a slight jealousy element involved in this.
I've got a friend. I got a mate who says that in Australia, they're just about creating jobs. They just say it's all about jobs. All about jobs. We want to create jobs in the film industry. But and we've got this tax system now that gives, if you spend so much money, every dollar you spend in Australia making a film, the government will give you 35 to 40% rebate on that. So for every dollar, you get 35, 40 cents back from the government. After the film is completed, you put in your application, they look at your budget, and they see what you spent in Australia. That qualifies, and boom, you get the money on that. Now, there's a big American productions pour into Australia every year. The Thors, the Alien Covenants, and all these movies pour into Australia. They shoot here, spend all this money. They do employ Australian crews. I will not deny that. We get a lot of Australian crews who work. But then they give all that tax incentive to this, and it goes in like Mad Max. We gave them $100 million of tax money for that Furiosa. Yeah. After the film was completed, and it employed a lot of Australians, but that's still $100 million of Australian tax incentive. Imagine what would happen if $100 million, that's more than what Screen Australia get every annum. Imagine what $100 million in the hands of 10 Australian filmmakers, each making a $10 million film in a marketable genre like a sci-fi or action or a thriller or horror. Imagine what that would do. And imagine the career boost for 10 Australian filmmakers.
Yeah.
That and not just employing for one film, you'd be employing 10 crews.
Yeah.
And supporting the careers of the producers, writers, and directors, not only the below the line people who do the catering and do the focus pulling, but the people above who write, direct, and these are the people often who you have to go without, who don't have secure work because they're above the line.
Yeah. I want to look at some of the other comments on this post, and there are some they're coming as we're live. There's more being added as we're live.
Yeah. I haven't actually disclosure. I haven't read a lot of them.
No, that's okay.
I've tended to keep away because I'm just waiting for the criticism to come at me. So
I have to say, mate, that these are all very much in support of you. I've not read one that's caused you a whinging guy or whatever, and I don't think your post comes across as you're not someone who's moaning about your lot. You're just saying, look, this is what I've done, and I've gone the routes that are expected of me. I've achieved certain levels that are expected of me. I'm receiving nothing in return from the institutions that are there to support someone who is proving themselves time and time again and achieving the levels that you ask of us to achieve. And I'm doing it all on my own with no help from you, and I'm still not getting any help. Madeline Heatherton Mao, I won't read out her whole post, but she talks about everyone needing to get involved in the campaign for streaming regulation in Australia, citing that as one of the main reasons there's so little commissioning of new film and television.
Do you know about what that is? Do you want me to explain what that is?
Jump in just a sec. She has also included a link for forms. I'm going to put that in the chat in case it's relevant.
I signed this. She sent this to me personally. I recognize her name now, and I signed it. Yeah, I signed it.
Did you sign it today or previously?
I signed it yesterday.
Okay, great. So that's. Do you want to explain that to us, Matt?
What we used to have in Australia is we used to have a mandate that it was. For all Australian television companies like 9, 7, 10, ABC, SBS had to have Australian quota. You had to show a certain percentage of Australian-made content, and this is why. And it has started way back in the 70s, 80s or something. This is why we had all this money going into Flying Doctors and Home and Away and Neighbours. We were making Australian television all the time. We had a bigger Australian TV industry than a film industry because we had these quotas. Every channel had to show a certain percentage. And that ran for years. But now when streaming's come along, and the TV is pretty much gone now, they wanted to bring in these quotas to say to the streaming sector, you have to commission, if you want to run your streaming service in Australia, you got to commission Australian content, certain percent on your site. And they all pushed back on it. Netflix were like, we're not going to bother then with Australia because that's not worth it to us. And unfortunately, the government here backed down and went, oh, okay, all right, we won't push the quota then. They played chicken and they dodged, and Netflix stood firm. And so now we don't have that mandate. But then I've also heard others say, well, why does Australia deserve it? Because a lot of the films that we're making and right now aren't making money. No one's going to see them in Australia. And I think that's another problem caused by the types of films we're supporting, which the film corporations are supporting.
Right.
And not films that the general mainstream audiences are wanting. So it's sort of a dual problem. But yeah, we don't have those mandates. And that's what that thing is for, is to try to get them to mandate certain percentage of content, because in Australia, in our streaming services, it's just all international stuff that we get. It's very, very little. Only occasionally do we get an Australian series.
Let me touch on a couple of other issues people have mentioned. So, Anna Waters Macy says, thanks for sharing and saying pretty much what every Australian indie filmmaker feels. The support for creators is woeful. Matt Norman, Well done on expressing the reality so clearly. I find myself in a similar situation, constantly facing uphill battles after 27 years with more skills than I know what to do with. There still seems to be no real hope on the horizon. You're absolutely right. And further on in his post, he says he's in his mid-50s. Hey, mate, welcome to my world. Always on the lookout for new film opportunities. Feels like this is a guy you should maybe collaborate with, Matt. I own 100 grand's worth of camera and equipment. So I'll reiterate that. Sounds like a guy you should collaborate with, Matt. Yeah, I still get asked to work for free. It's a harsh reality, but the dream keeps us going. It would be incredible to have an industry that truly supports us, but unfortunately, it seems to be out of reach. And another valid point, he says, as for agents, I thought it was great that you brought up the agent thing. I agree with you. They rarely consider 30-year-old veterans instead of opting to represent Instagram and TikTok influencers. As filmmakers, we often find ourselves in a solitary world where others are paid before we are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really crazy with agents. You know, I got encouraged a year ago, you know, by a fairly large producer here in Australia who's sympathetic to my plight. Said, Matt, you've got to get an agent. You've got to go out and get an agent so you can start getting put forward for stuff. And I said, yep, I totally agree. I'm going to get proactive. And I reached out to as many agencies as I could get emails for. I don't know how many I applied to. 2 responded. And both of them were, yeah, we're not taking anybody on right now. Thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah, that's the standard rejection letter. And I mean...
And you're going, what? I've done 4 films, 4 features, all been released. They're not like features that I made that just disappeared and they never got released. Like they have all been picked up by the big companies. Like my last one just got picked up by Studio Canal, and the one before that got picked up by Madman. And like, what's the problem? You know?
Yeah.
Why? I've got all this experience. I've been doing it for so long. Like.
Yeah, you've earned your spurs.
You know,
you've certainly put in the time. I mean,
it just doesn't make any sense. Like if someone is qualified to direct I could direct television. I can direct things that come across your desk. I'm capable of doing it, but you don't want me. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Maybe they've just got too many of the types of me on their books and they're not selling them. So why take another? Maybe that's the case, but I don't know. Sometimes I just get the feeling that maybe I'm just not genetically the kind of person they're looking for, but yeah.
But also
maybe
I'm baffled about the very, very poor trickle down of profit when it comes to streaming, DVD sales, Blu-ray sales, etc., etc. You know how
it's
little
not unique
of that
to Australia.
down. Yeah. I mean, it's a side of things that I've continuously found utterly baffling. You know, where's the drive? What would conceivably drive somebody to want to enter into this business if they have so little that they're able to take out of it? You know, and it's not like, you know, people are going into the business for fame and fortune. Okay, there might be some numbskulls that think that fame and fortune is is what you get. You know, it's just that may be a byproduct. But you need to earn a living. You know, people need to earn that living, and if there's no payoff or payout, you know, where is that living? Where's that encouragement for independent filmmakers in particular?
See, this is the problem I have with the system. When I say the system is broken, this is what I mean by the system. Who takes the biggest risk when an independent film comes out, right? The people who finance it and the people who make it. Because the people who not talking about the crew who get hired, they work hard, but they get hired. I'm talking about the producers, writers, directors, the people who create it. They will always work more hours than they're ever compensated for. Yeah. And they've usually worked a lot harder with, years of unpaid work to get it there. Yeah. And then you've got the finances, whoever's putting up the risk capital to make it. Now, these are the 2 people taking the most risks. And these are the people whose, money and jobs are the least secure. Yet for some reason, the system is set up that those two groups of people are the last to receive anything. They are the bottom of the trickle, and the trickle rarely reaches them. So
and the top seem to be the exhibitionists.
The tops are the people that don't have to take any risk. The people that don't have any creative stake or skin in the game, the distributors, and then the sales agents, and these middlemen who have parked themselves into the center and gone, right, we'll take this space. And we do need people like that to get the film out there, although that's starting to change too. But they've parked themselves and they just take too big a pieces of the pie. They just chew it all up with their fees and their marketing expenses that they can rack up. And by the time, and it's so hard to monetize films now anyway, so by the time the money comes, if any money comes back, it's been soaked up so much by middlemen that the two groups of people who took the risk, what's left for them? I mean, just look at the article about Brady Corbett. There is an article where one of his producers talks about that very thing. That model is still happening in the Hollywood world. By the time it gets to the producers and directors, their percentage of profits are so small that they've got nothing left. They got their fee that they got paid to work on the film, and they've been living off it for 3 years. And that's what I've been doing. I've been living off Fear Below, although that's gone now. And now I'm just supplementing it, and I'm working as a unit assistant, right? I've directed 4 features, but to get money, I've got to work as a unit assistant. I'm making coffees for crew and setting up chairs and tables and craft services for crew. I don't mind doing the work. I like working with my friend who's a unit manager, and I like being on set with filmmakers. But it does feel funny when you're like, I've got a feature film coming out this year. Do you want a coffee? To film crew,
Yeah. It is now that I don't know if you saw the post by Julian Roberts. I read this one earlier, and I thought this was interesting. Let me get it up.
Right. So did you say Julia Roberts?
Julian, not Julia Roberts.
Oh, right. I was going to say, wow, did Julia Roberts get
yeah, Julia Roberts got in touch. She says, Matt, I'll be in your film. I'll help you raise some money. I wish. No, Julian Roberts, I assume he's a filmmaker, says the following. It's why I moved to LA. Couldn't get my film funded in Australia. Now I have multiple projects being looked at by production companies, producers, and studios over here. I'll talk about my own experiences in LA in a minute. I was mentored last year by the head of development at 101 Studios, Tulsa King, 1923, Kingstown, Landman, Yellowstone, etc. Yeah, well, that's Taylor Sheridan's outfit, so that's a good studio to be mentored by. Via the Pettigrews Hollywood Radio and TV Society, which I never would have landed being in Australia. I have a mentor at WME. I've just got an investment deal for all the post-production by a major post-production company that's been around for 40 years in Hollywood for a short film I'm making. And they're taking the finished short to a studio to turn it into a feature. Again, none of this would have happened living in Australia. I don't fit the requirements for funding that Screen Australia wants, but guess who else didn't? James Wan and Lee Wannell. I'm not familiar with those names.
Wan and Lee, they're the Saw guys.
Saw, okay, thank you.
Yeah, and James Wan been directing all the Aquaman films.
How did they get Saw made? They went to LA and got financing here. I had meetings for my project at New Line, Studio 8, 21 Laps, Legendary Lionsgate, New Republic, and many others, and my scripts are currently being reviewed by Anonymous Content at the moment. Again, I'm over here in LA while Screen Australia wouldn't even talk to me when I was living in Australia. They need to bring back the 10BA to entice private investors back into the game. I don't know what the 10BA is. Maybe you can enlighten us on that.
I'll explain that.
Yeah. Otherwise, the Australian industry is in a lot of trouble. Now, before you respond, I mean, Julian, that's all great, but obviously not everyone can afford to up sticks and go to LA. I've lived in LA myself for 3 months. I have to say, I didn't particularly like it. I had a lot of meetings. Nothing went anywhere for me. I mean, maybe I was just unlucky. I don't know. And I had some great introductions by some powerful people. Shout out to producer director Keith Gordon for facilitating many of those for me. And it just didn't happen. I also realized that was not a city that I wanted to live in terms going forward. I don't actually drive, and I can't hold a driving license because of a scar in my head. So for me, living in LA, not a massive appeal. And I know for yourself, you've got a pet, you've got you've got a parent, you've got a parent who's elderly. You've also got your wife who's got a business there. It's not a simple case just to up sticks and go to Los Angeles and restart one's career. I mean, that
you're just going to a bigger pond, and you're a small fish going to a bigger pond. And look, I know that story he's told, but I also know some Australian directors who I would say are in the next rung to me, who have done that, and they come back to Australia with their tail between their legs, because you know what they do? They spend a decade in LA doing nothing but taking meetings for projects that fall over again and again and again, and they just end up so soul crushed. They come back to Australia and start making genre films, because all they do is have people in LA just talk, meeting. Things almost happen, and then the projects get crushed. And a lot of the time, they're finding that they're getting their films. As soon as they attach a big star, the big star just comes along and just goes, right, I want everything to be different, and they're controlling the project.
Yeah.
And the director who's worked so hard is like, wait a minute, are you directing this? And they're like, no, the star has all the power. And they just took meetings for decades, and nothing ever happened. So you're kind of jumping out of one problem into another problem. But, and look, occasionally, there will be the Lee Winnars and the James Wans who win, but they are the exception to the rule. They are not the rule. I'm the rule. The rule is you can't get anywhere in this business, and the Lee Winnars and the James Wans are the exception. So, I don't know if it's the answer. It's a answer, but there's too many failure stories in the move to LA.
I mean, we've also got somebody else brings up another valid issue, which is, the industry is in a terrible state at the minute. I mean, if we look at the films that have been produced in most of 2024 and thus far in 2025, remember when I went up to the multiplex, which is, I can walk to the multiplex from my house, and every film that was on was either a sequel, a prequel, or a remake. Every single movie.
That's why I don't go to. I love the cinema. I haven't been in God knows how long, because I don't want to see any of this stuff.
Yeah.
The last thing I saw on the big screen was Inside Out 2, and I think just before that, Horizon Part 1, which was an original movie with Kevin Costner.
Yeah, which didn't do too well
which didn't do too well, and even though Horizon Part 2 was ready to be released, they canned it, and thus leaving a lot of frustrated people who want to watch the rest of that movie, including me.
Where's Part 2? Damn it!
Yeah, I'd like to see Part 2, but Jonathan Leonard says, if it's any consolation to you, Matthew, years back in Los Angeles, I had an Academy Award-winning director from just a few years before come to fix my Mac. I was shocked that even with his acclaimed position, he had barely any money to show for his success. I had another friend, a DOP, who at your age shot every person's short film or low-budget film and had been asked to shoot another one. He complained to me much in the same way you're describing. Yeah, so...
It's everywhere. Let me tell you what the 10BA is, and I actually think I agree with that guy. Australia needs to bring back the 10BA scheme, which the government scrapped in the 90s. Basically, the 10BA scheme means it's to stimulate film investment from the private sector. If anyone invests in a film, they can claim 150% of it on tax, and they also only pay half of the capital gains tax. If that film makes a profit, they don't pay as much tax on that profit. because they're here, and the government will take 45% of anything that you make profit on anything. But it gets vastly reduced on the 10BA. So it's a great incentive to invest, because one, it's a 150% tax write-off. So for big companies with a lot of money, that's a good thing for come tax time. And on top of that, if they get a profit, if the film makes money and they get a profit, they don't have to pay out half of it on capital gains tax. They can only have to pay a certain amount. And when we had that, there was a boom of Australian filmmaking. You don't want to know why Australia boomed in the 80s with all of those, exploitation films and all the Peter Weir movies and all that Philip Noyce movies. These were all 10BA movies. It absolutely skyrocketed the Australian film industry through the 80s into the 90s, and this is why we had the Priscillas and the Murals weddings and the
castle,
the castle,
and the dish.
Because it was 10BA, and when they stopped that, and the Man for Snow River films as well, when the 10BA stopped, because it was being abused. So what we need to do is we need to bring back 10BA, and that's what I'll be telling my local MPs and my federal MPs. We've got to bring back the 10BA, because this is, and this goes back to what you were saying, Inside Man. We're not as long as we let government-controlled funding bodies run this industry, it's never going to work. It's just not, especially in Australia, it's not going to work, because their priorities are different. We need to start looking at this from the market has to determine what's getting made, not tick boxes, because they change, and the people running those things, they change all the time, and they're not filmmakers. They're not market industry people. We need to let if it's 10BA, right? I don't need the film corporations, right? I don't need any of them. As a filmmaker, I write a script, I take it to investors. If they see potential, they can put money in it. They get a great tax write-off, and they see an upside if this thing makes money. And I can raise money, and I can let the market determine what gets made. And I don't even need government financing. I don't need to go to them. I can just make it with private investment. And that's where it needs to be, because we're letting the film industry be run by people that are not filmmakers and don't understand.
Matt, there's an interesting proposal here from James Rickerton. I'll read it out. Having been a filmmaker since 1971, so much of what appears in these comments rings true. I have no idea what or who Cinema Australia is, but I suggest that a get-together be organised to which all who've commented here, meaning this conversation, because there's a lot of would-be filmmakers and so on, meet in either Sydney or have a gathering, either one in Sydney and perhaps one in Melbourne. The objective to meet, chat, swap notes, discuss possible solutions to multiple problems, and advocate where we can for change. I've been a party to a few such attempts to change the rules of the game in this past century. It can be done, but not if all we do is complain on a Facebook post. I mean, worth maybe having a conversation with him.
Yeah, it would be. We do need to. I mean, I'm talking to a guy at the moment who he's been actually talking to the Minister of the Arts here in Australia, like the head of the Minister of the Arts. He actually got into his ear at a social function, and he was just railing on this guy, just telling him, you've got to do better with the film industry. And it's probably what's part of that stimulated why I wanted to write this post. But we should be. He was saying something like, you know what we should create, and a body of filmmakers. Like a collective of working filmmakers who judge and greenlight projects for funding, and all we get given is a script. We don't get the filmmaker. We don't get any application. We don't know who they are, what they are, how old they are. We know nothing about them. We simply get a script, and we go, is this a good script? And do we think this has market potential? And if we put it in the yes pile, then you go to the person and go, okay, we think this has got potential. And then we start talking. But none of that, the person who wrote it, we don't care whether they're a first timer, or anything. You just go by merit. Is this a good project? Does this have market potential?
Yeah.
And those filmmakers you then can aid and assist and help advise how to get this script as good as it can and help that filmmaker get it there. Because you just feel like when you're applying, as you probably felt, Lance, when you applied, by the time you've told them everything about who you are, what you are, you feel like you're already gone in the no pile before you've even gotten to your idea.
Yeah.
You see, this is how it used to work. People used to recognize talent and a good script when they read it. They recognize a bad script when they read it. And these would go through multiple hands, so they'd have several fingerprints, sets of fingerprints over them, because they'd be passed around the offices. They'd be passed around to different executives, and everybody would give their own take on things. But of course, this almost seems archaic compared to how things are now. But it's a tried and tested method which absolutely 100% worked. It's judging something on its merit, not judging the person on their age or any other, whether they meet any other criteria or demographic. But as you say, I mean, this is a very, very common thing now in terms of, you feel like you're being judged before your script has even been read. I mean, the BBC themselves, I mean, Lance will know this, but the BBC and Netflix over here, I think Netflix about 3 years ago, they had a big thing going on where they wanted new screenwriters to submit. It was kind of an open submissions from the UK. From UK screenwriters, we want new independent screenwriters, and it was all horseshit. It was a smokescreen. It didn't mean a thing.
Of course,
the BBC constantly have their writers' room, as they call it, where they encourage new screenwriters to submit their scripts and treatments. And again, it's a smokescreen. It means nothing.
No, it doesn't. It's lip service.
It's purely lip service.
We had the same problem in Australia with this. The new head of Netflix. Someone even sent me the article and said, a well-meaning person said, "Matt, look at this article. You should apply to Netflix because there's a new head of Netflix in Netflix Australia." And the article was, "We're looking for new voices. We're looking for independent filmmakers. We want new ideas, and these are the criteria of the Australian things that we want." And I thought, I've already gone to Netflix with my television series. That is everything you say. That is every bit Australian, every bit culturally relevant, every bit I am the person I should be able to go in. They've already rejected it. You know what I mean? I can't reach this person. There's no way you can contact these people who say, "We want Australian stories. Bring the Australian, bring it all in." You can't find a way to even apply to these places. How do you even get there? Nobody can reach them. So it's just a smokescreen. And I just read the article and said, yeah, that's bullshit. That's just someone mouthing off to get an article to say, hey, look how good I am now that I'm in charge. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to green light what they say they're going to green light.
Of course.
And this is a horrible part of it just occurred to me. Someone like me, they'll probably look at it and go, well, you know what? You're not new enough. We're looking for new voices. You've been around a while, Matt. And yet sometimes you haven't been around enough because, you're too green in some eyes. You're too, you're not successful enough in some eyes. And then sometimes you're too successful.
Yeah.
You're not new enough. You're too much this side of 50 and you're too little this side of 50. You know what I mean?
I always wonder that, excuse me, I always wonder whenever you see those things, we're looking for new voices. And it seems to be a very much a commonly used phrase, we are looking for new voices to write screenplays for us and, new shows, new voices, etc. And I often wonder what new voices means. Does new voices actually mean somebody who is, very young? Or does it mean somebody who is naive and that can be manipulated?
Yeah.
Manipulated.
That's right.
Manipulated into reflecting the voices of the people that hold the keys to those gates.
Yeah. Like why wouldn't you go what we want experienced? Wouldn't you go Like when you go for any other job, right?
Hmm.
Isn't it always that we want to see that you've worked in this industry before, you've got a proven track record, that you've done this? That's what I get whenever I apply for a factory job. Have you done this before? Have you built boxes before? And you're like, no. Well, we want someone who's built boxes before. Why in the film industry are the most qualified people who've got films to show? Why are they not being the people that are being looked at? Why is it that someone who's just waltzes in, who's never made a film before, why are they getting pushed to the top? And because they're a new voice, because they have no idea what they're doing. Like,
I mean,
and I get it.
There's always a need for new talent to come up. I agree with that. And
of course, you've got to have that. But if that's all you're getting,
it's good that there are conduits for that sort of thing. But there are people out there who haven't been recognized, who've been overlooked, who've been grafting, and they, as you said in your article, you have a skill set that you've achieved by 30 years of graft. That's why you have that skill set, because you've gone out there and done this time again. Everybody on this panel will know I'm better than a competent writer, and I can write a better script faster than probably anybody I know.
Yeah, but you can actually get to the end of a script in a week. Some people spend years and they still can't get it.
Yeah, and most of my scripts are probably better than people that spend years on them, because I know what I'm doing. And that's a skill that I honed, and it really, that skill really came into its own in the pandemic, because there was nothing for me to do but write. And not only was I writing, but I was being encouraged by a circle of about 200 actors who were waiting online to read these scripts, and I was benefiting from hearing them read them and finding what was working and what wasn't, and their response was incredible to the material that I was providing, and gave me a really good sense of how to do certain things and so on. So whereas I mean, first time writers, sometimes I saw a great script the other day from a guy called David Savage, who was in the chat earlier. He's actually waiting for me to do a little script summary for him, and he's a relatively new writer. It's a cracking script, and he was talking to one, I probably shouldn't say actually, but he's been talking to people about getting it made. I don't want to digest conversations that he's had with me. But the kind of offers that he's been put are ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. And these people are basically looking to, take him, well, I don't think they have his interests at heart, shall we say. There's nowhere for him to go. And it's one of the best sort of horror scripts I've read in quite a while. It's kind of original. It's pretty simple. Again, I don't want to reveal the details, but yeah, and worth people reading. Where can he go to take that? Because he's not represented. So most big production companies won't look at his script because he doesn't have an agent. Most agents won't touch him because he doesn't have enough body of work in order to be recognized. He's also a white male in his 50s. So that probably rules him out of every competition that's going. Here he is. He's in the chat. He knows I'm talking about him. And sorry, David, I didn't mean to talk out of turn in terms of offers and things you've been made. So I won't get into your details. But, and when he told me, there's this production company that's said, we can make this film one of two ways. And he told me the two options. I was like, dude, both of those options are fucking massive red flags. And this is the only place for him to go, because no one is going to help this guy get this script made. And and if I was Matt, if you and I had done well and we had our own production company right now and we were looking at scripts and we had Jimmy Boosh and a couple of other filmmakers, like I was hoping to have after we did Paratrooper. We were all going to work on projects together. That was the dream. This would probably be a script I'd stick in front of some of you and say, what do you think? It's that sort of standard. Yeah. But there just isn't Unfortunately, we're not in that position to help you, David. Either of the Davids that are in the chat, David Macy as well is another one. I wish we were. We're not. We're not in a position to help.
I mean, that's the dream, isn't it? We want to be able to make our own, but also turn around on the ladder. This is one thing I've really noticed about filmmakers, and we tend to want to, because we know the struggle, we'll turn around to the filmmaker below and we'll try to lend a hand as much as we can to get them up the ladder, right? I've had this
some of us do that. Let's say
the good guys do it. I've had this.
The good guys gravitate towards each other. That's why you and I are friends, and that's why me and Inside Man are friends. It's why me and Jimmy Boosh are friends. We gravitate towards each other.
Yeah, sure. And when we celebrate each other's successes, and we love it when one of us gets ahead. And
absolutely.
And I've had that with people like Rolf de Heer and Greg McLean and other, Michael Reimer and other Australian directors who are well above me in their careers and who've done amazing things. They'll turn around and they take a meeting with me. They'll talk to me about my career. They'll try to help. They'll connect me with somebody. They just try to help. And I try to help those that are coming up underneath me. I try to give them advice and give them some of my time. But there seems to be this helping hand with filmmakers, and I see that in history with the way Spielberg would nurture the Robert Zemeckis and Lucas would support young Spielberg and Scorsese and Coppola would support the Lucas. There was this pulling up of filmmakers,
Yeah.
They helped each other. They I get behind you. I'll EP on that one, and you did this, and we'll help get you up. And while their careers ascending, they're bringing these guys with them. And I feel like that's a good way to go. If we can get that sort of, people, because this is the big difference, I think. And I was talking about with Nadia just before bedtime. And this comes from a Rodriguez interview that she showed me yesterday. Why we care about films, we love films, we are passionate, we know why films work and why audiences love particular films, but it doesn't seem like the studios know, and it doesn't seem like the funding bodies know, because these people are not film crazy like we are. They don't understand film intuitively like we do. I don't think that half the people that I send the scripts to in those environments actually they couldn't tell you if this is a good script or not. They'll put it into AI and go, is this good? I don't know. Because they can't read something objectively and go, this is an objectively good script that has a place. They have to get an underling to tell them, or an AI program to tell them.
Yeah.
There's no discernment because they're not filmmakers. They don't care. I mean, I know sales agents and so on that don't even like movies. You're like, what are you doing in this business? Robert Rodriguez said, why these guys who run these studios don't even like movies. They don't care. And I think you see that in the cynical, what we're seeing on the cinema now is so cynical. These are not being made by people who really care about cinema and really love movies. This is just content sludge.
Yeah.
This is just algorithm sludge.
You're absolutely right. I mean, this is, and I hate that word content. I absolutely loathe the word content. Whenever I hear these so-called executives using the word content, you kind of, you start to wither and think, what on earth are these people doing if they think that these things are content? Netflix, they don't make movies, they make content. They don't make TV shows, they make content. And I don't understand that all they're doing is creating or buying product in to fill a space, to fill a shelf. That's really all it is. There's no real exhibition there. The art and the beauty of exhibition is dwindling, it's dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's not going to be long before we really do start to mourn the loss of cinemas and cinema going.
Because you know what the priority is, they don't care about film, because film's that's just content.
Yeah.
They have an app. They just need things in the app. The app makes the money.
Yep.
And that's all they care about.
Yeah.
They take the money, you take your thing, I'm making money on the app. I need to fill it with that frustrating, annoying thing called content. but the filmmakers aren't getting any benefit. We get no residuals. We get no share. And of course, the only place to see it is on a streamer, and they'll go, I won't name the name of this film for privacy reasons, but I know of a $30 million Australian movie, relatively recent in the last 5 years, that has big name stars in it. That was given, okay, so $30 million Australian film, released internationally, big stars, was given $5,000 to be on Netflix.
Wow.
$5,000 is all that Netflix offered them for this film.
Oh my God, that's disgusting.
And that came from the director of that film. He told me.
Wow.
Won't say which film it is, but 5. You couldn't even believe it.
Jesus Christ.
When he said,
was that for worldwide rights?
That was the Australian, I think. I don't know. Right. I don't know if it was for worldwide. That was just for Australia. But even then, that's insane.
I mean, that's ridiculously low, though, isn't it? Even just for Australia.
But that's all you get. That's all because they control the. They can write the checks and they write the rules, so they can charge what they want. And if you don't take it, well, you're not going to get your film on Netflix. And then that film went on to be, like, one of Netflix's big players. Like, it was, it was always on the list. It was always getting shown. It was, it was a film that was popular on Netflix. I mean, they got a bargain. But the film production companies and the director, they're not going to see another dime for that. And I mean, when he asked me, the director said, how much do you think we got for that film at Netflix? And I went, $500,000? $5,000. That's $25 to $30 million movie.
That's appalling. Absolutely appalling.
So what chance does someone like me have with a little indie with 3 actors that are not famous, that was made for $100,000? They give you nothing.
Well, there's no value. They place no value on the filmmakers. These literally are just distributors. I mean, look, distributors have been the same, for years and years. But now I think we've reached a completely different level. It's a totally new playing field. Now we have the streaming services. I mean, we have for example, I'll give you a little bit of an example, right? Disney Plus. So Disney Plus, their profits for the last year were $47 million, right? Yeah, kind of sounds like that's an okay amount of money, but I
don't think it is. That's really low.
Right. Did you say 47
million? That's profit.
Profit for their platform. Considering how much
doesn't seem like a lot, but anyway.
No.
But together, that $47 million profit, they have spent $23.5 billion on Disney Plus to get $47 million profit. Now that's unsustainable.
It isn't sustainable. Netflix's debt is enormous because film production is expensive, as we all know, and the content they've got to make, whether it's sludge or not, it still costs the same amount. You still got to pay crew and everything and special effects, and but look, I blame streaming for the collapse of this film industry. I always have. They devalued content. I hate that word. They devalued film by offering it only slightly better than piracy. $10 a month and I let you all you can eat. It used to be that $10 a week I got 2 new releases and that's all I got. $10, I got a ticket to the thing. Per minute, films and television had value. If I wanted to watch half an hour of Friends, I had to sit through 3 ad breaks. The content had a value, and the per minute had a value, and people were paying for it. And then Netflix comes along with their dumb fuck model. Netflix, I hate your model, where you just go $12 all you can eat. If someone ran a restaurant like this, they'd be out of business before Friday. You cannot just say $10 all you can eat. It devalues content. It killed killed rentals and DVDs and everything. And now everyone's just trying to copy this broken model. And the people that I feel like that, you know, that scene in Fight Club where they get the guy in the bathroom and he goes, "We are the people that clean your, you know, that guard you while you sleep. You know, we watch your things, we clean your clothes, what, you know, we do all, we take out your trash. Do not fuck with us."
Yeah.
You know, I feel like saying to the streamers, we filmmakers and the people who write, direct, you know, we make this stuff. We put our lives on the line for this stuff. We put our careers on the line for this stuff. Why are you fucking with us? Why are you giving it? Why do you treat us with such little respect and give us so little? You know, the only people who are doing good are the people in the upper echelons, who, you know, like the Matt Damons of the world and the Christopher Nolans, who are well okay with everybody else. But they're still playing our movies. They're still screening our movies. They're still buying them.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there has to come a time when the streaming model, as it stands at the moment, will implode. You know, I'm hoping that it's going to come soon.
Isn't it already imploding? I see it's just becoming TV again. Now I watch Netflix, I get interrupted by ads every 5 minutes. It's like, oh wow, it's back to watching Channel 7 again, is it?
Yeah. No, you're right. Absolutely right.
We've got a couple of other independent filmmakers on here in the chat, as well as a couple of script writers. You can tell, and some of them are from England. They like staying up late. I've got an indie filmmaker called Teresa Chen, who I'm chatting to right now, who I've just added. And for the Bennett, and there's also another one. I don't know if maybe this is Teresa's account. Another indie filmmaker from Down Under is in the chat. If you want to come on and talk to us and be part of the panel, we haven't got that long left, but I'll start. I like, this is why this channel's here. We're here to support other independent filmmakers. My channel is here so that when you're working on a project, when you've got your trailer coming out, or you're doing your Kickstarter, or whatever you might be doing, you can reach out to me via the Outcast Creative Facebook page, or indeed my Twitter account, Lance Nielsen WD, and I'll get you on. And as Matt and the Inside Man will tell you, I'm here to support you. That's why the channel is here. That's why the channel's here. So you know, Matt's story, sadly, is not unique. And we really want to be here to give independent filmmakers a voice. One day, maybe my channel will be massive, so that you know, if I see a great indie film that I like and I think it's fantastic, and I think people should either go and watch it, or they should rent it, or however you're going to get it at that particular point in time, it would be great if one day this channel is of such a power that I'll be able to get you 10,000 viewers or whatever. So please return that karma, those people that are watching. I know there's quite a few new people here today. That is why the channel is here. Tell people about the channel. Check out the other content. Matthew's interview is number 107. One of the interviews I've got on here is with Gail Ann Hurd, who's the producer of The Walking Dead and the first two Terminator films, the only two Terminator films that are worth talking about.
Worth
really.
Watching.
Aliens.
Aliens in the Abyss. I mean,
Aliens in the Abyss.
And one of my personal favorites, Escape from Absalom.
Yeah, which was called No Escape in the UK. Electric Cold says, I really do love the premise of your channel, Lance, and I do help for success. I mean, it's really difficult to hit the algorithms on Facebook unless I keep putting up stupid videos of dogs, which I refuse to do. Not that I don't like dogs. Matthew will tell you I'm a big dog guy, but it's not a dog channel. So it's a creative channel. We're here to support creative people. I do have some very valuable allies. I'm frequently on the channel of the Critical Drinker. I'm also involved in a project with him at the moment. We're not here to talk about that tonight, but that is a case in point that there are independent people that are finding other ways to raise finance. And we can talk about what a nightmare that is, even in the independent sector, where it's a sea of sharks just waiting to eat you.
Ooh, yeah.
And maybe that's something we'll touch upon.
Yeah,
before we go.
yeah, that's a whole other problem. When you start getting into the underbelly of when you can't do it that way and you start trying to do it the other way, that's another sea of sharks. who will rip you off every other way, who again are not filmmakers. They can't do it themselves. They need us. They need real filmmakers, but they'll exploit you, and they'll take everything. They'll take you for everything you got. So that's another whole can of worms that
sound like gangsters, don't they?
Yeah. Oh, look, they operate like gangsters. I've been stung this way, still reeling and dealing with the effects of it. So, it's shit, man. Funny, I just had a friend comment on my post just this morning as we're having this. A guy that actually worked for me on Legend of Ben Hall. He was our cameraman, stills photographer. He said he was told 15 years ago by a mentor that if you want to break into the film industry, you need to leave Australia. I thought he was being dramatic, but the more award-winning directors on welfare I've heard about, the truer that rung. The irony is that Australian film professionals are internationally regarded as some of the best, not just in our backyard. So Australia is a training ground, forging world-class talent to be released on the world. We were in the 90s an international powerhouse. We had funding to give and real support. So, something happened.
If there can be some kind of remodeling of this 10BA system.
Oh, it should be.
It sounds.
It should be, because the current system, the producer offset that they offer, it does the investor cannot. It's too hard for the investor to get the immediate benefit of that. It's too far down the line. Yeah. That's why the 10BA works so well, because people were just. This is how Crocodile Dundee got financed, because people went just businesses went, oh yeah. This is how Nicole Kidman's career got kicked off, because people who build electrical equipment in Adelaide went, oh yeah, I'll put some money into BMX Bandits.
Yeah.
Nicole Kidman's career.
Oh my God, that film was directed by I forget his name, but he's on my friends list. I'd like to welcome Teresa to the channel.
Good morning.
For the first time on the Outcast Creative channel. Yeah, good morning, good evening in the UK. You are also an indie filmmaker, I believe, and you're also from Australia. Is that correct?
That's right. I'm a filmmaker from Sydney. So I kind of started back in around 2016. And I have to say, Matthew, your post resonated with a lot of people. It certainly resonated with me. And that's how I came across this, because when I read it, it's like someone's finally trying to open a discussion, which should have been said, in my opinion, years ago. And I say this as someone who hasn't even reached the level of filmmaking in comparison to you, because a lot of what I do has pretty much just ended up on the YouTube, social media space. I was involved in the feature, but even then the budget was tiny, like around 10K Australian. And that stretches it doesn't go very far.
No, you're among friends here who I've made a feature film in another country for 50 grand. So Matthew,
it doesn't. But even that, it soaks up quick, doesn't it? It doesn't get far.
It does. And I think coming from me, I think one of the things that struck me was the idea of the personal sacrifice. Because for me, it's like, and no one's going to be like, you're trying to own a house in Sydney is like, good luck.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Try to own a house in Adelaide. Good luck.
Good luck. Like that's not happening.
London also has this issue. So yeah.
When you say you're amongst friends, it's like we get it. And I think for me, it's because I came into actually filmmaking a little bit later. So I might not look it, but I'm actually 38. So yeah.
Right.
Looking pretty good for 38.
Yep.
Normally you'd have a few more grey hairs if you've been a filmmaker for that long.
That's true, through the stress. So I think I'm handling it very well. So I look back and I think in my circumstance, I'm actually very fortunate, one, because my parents actually got used to the idea of me doing that very quickly. So they accepted it, and many other people cannot say the same thing. And it is definitely in the off the beaten track type of path. And you have to be a little bit crazy.
Oh yeah.
I think you do, because you have to be okay with the idea that you have to be okay with the idea of financial instability.
Yeah. That's one thing that I get told a lot. People go, Matt, how do you live? Well, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm unemployed right now. I don't know when I'm going to get another dollar. And they go, how do you live like that? I'm like, I've gotten used to it. I live by faith in that
Right.
I'll just manage somehow, and
Yeah.
here I'm still here.
Yeah.
I
So
think
that's
it kind of brings a whole new meaning to the phrase "suffering for your art," doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
yeah, it does. So
And I
it's
thought I knew I was going to suffer for my art. Like I knew it from the beginning.
Mm.
But I thought if I hang on long enough, I would finally, the suffering would ease. With every project, I get a little bit more money, I get a little bit more opportunity, I get more doors open. But here I am, 5 films in, and I don't think it's either changed at all or it's getting harder.
Yeah.
And that's where it really hit me when I've now got a film coming out like in 30 days, and I'm going, I don't think I've had it as hard as I've had this. It's getting harder, and yet I've been here for 30 years thinking it's going to get easier. And that was I think the dawning that really hit me the other day that inspired me to write this, because I just thought everything's backwards. I'm supposed to be here. Well, at least I thought closer to here.
Yeah.
But I've it's like you don't get anywhere because the doors won't open.
Mate, I mean, as you know, when I read through your story, and just so you know, Teresa, Matt and I have been good friends for 10 years, and how we met is I saw his crowdfunding campaign for his second film, which was a short at that time, and I thought this guy is worth supporting. I wasn't a rich guy, but I had a little bit of money to choose where to put it, and I thought I'm going to give him 500 quid or whatever it was. So we've been mates for a long time. And I had a big movie that would have changed my career if it had gone the way I planned. The producers turned out to be crooks, and there wasn't really any protection for me as an independent filmmaker against these kinds of people, nor were there the institutions that I went to try and get my film made, which was a very commercial World War II project that would have probably would have dropped before Dunkirk. And probably made as much money as Dunkirk did.
Yeah. And you had great, teaser trailers made and great artwork. It was
and we had a number of substantial talent attached, and anyway, these guys fucked off with all the money and put it into another film which never saw the light of day and paid themselves 2.75 million of the budget or whatever. So one of the outcomes of that was it destroyed my marriage. I went through a bit of a breakdown, tried to kill myself twice. This is the first time I'm talking about all this pretty bluntly, actually. And it was really awful. I mean, if you looked at a photograph of me around the time that was all happening, I probably look about 3 years older than I do now. Because, the last 2 years I've really focused on what makes me happy, which is 1, running this YouTube channel, 2, writing my books, 3, going out raving. I'm actually making my first film in a long time in this year, but there are no protections for people like us, and the biggest protection we have is each other, is this community, is exchanging stories, looking out for each other, and
warning about the pitfalls.
About the pitfalls, and that's why this channel is here. I'm here to support other creatives, but also to help them educate those that are just starting out, not just with my own stories, but with like Matt's and other people's as well. Everybody has something to contribute. You might think, Teresa, that you one of the first things you said was your career is not as significant as Matt's and your content is on YouTube. That doesn't not make you a filmmaker. You're still a filmmaker if you're making films and you're putting them somewhere to be seen. And there's someone out there now trying to do the stuff that you're doing probably 20 years ago, and you've probably got words of advice that you can say to them. I think a number of useful things can come out of what you've achieved, Matt, today, and I don't think we'll know the full results for some time, but I have a strong feeling things will. I'm not saying that everything's about to change. What I am saying is we have started a conversation here today of which you lit the spark. And the fact that I've just got somebody on who's just responded to your letter, all of us are meeting Teresa for the first time. We could, if we stayed on another hour, we could probably get another 20 filmmakers on here. And I think we should schedule another stream to do exactly that. And I'm more than willing to host that on the channel. So Matt and I will talk about that, and we'll advertise it, and let's get a whole load of people back, and we'll try and structure it a little bit. And we might have a lot of guests on. Inside Man's worked in the industry for 40 years. He's still working in the industry. He doesn't go on camera. It's one of the reasons why. But we're all people that have been in the trenches, and we have two other things in common. One is that we all love great movies, you know, be it Heat or Aliens or The Godfather or Goodfellas, or small stuff like Stealing Home is one of my favorite films of all time, with Mark Harmon and Jodie Foster. Tiny little film that these two guys made, the only film they've ever made. It's a great film, resonates with me. The other thing, you know, is that we love what we do, and we want to make stories. We want to do the same thing. We want to tell stories, and the reason we're still in it, and I'm assuming you've been in it for a while, Teresa. You said you're 38, so you're the youngest one here.
You're the baby of the group.
Yeah, you're the baby here. We've all been in it for a long time. I've been a full-time creative since 1997. I wanted to be a filmmaker even longer than that. Actor before that, and I still do a bit of that now and then. I mean, we're all still in it because we're passionate about it, because we care. This conversation is happening because we care. I care about Matt dearly. He's a great friend of mine, and he will tell you that we have been on the phone to each other numerous times over the last 10 years when one of us has been on the point of breaking, and the other's been there.
A few of those.
Yeah, and the other has been there on the end of the phone saying, listen, it's not that bad. Do this, do that. Stay strong. We've both been there for each other. I feel there's the beginning of a network forming here, and international filmmakers, indie filmmakers should feel free to use my channel to come here as a point of discussion, because that's why this channel exists. And you should come here to promote your work. When you've got stuff to show me, just message me. I will get you on and talk about it. If you look at the 107 interviews I've done to date, yeah, there's some big guests on there, like Ron Underwood, who directed Tremors, and we've had Gail Ann Hurd on, who produced Aliens and Terminator and whatnot. But we've also had people who've just written their first book on Amazon. We've also had people that are making their first film or making their first board game, or they've got a Kickstarter with something creative. This channel is called The Outcast Creative for a reason. And in a sense, because we're being ignored by the bastions that are supposed to be there to help us, and the people that are manning those bastions are getting pretty decent paychecks, as the Inside Man mentioned before. They're probably not struggling at home. We are outcasts because they've made us feel like that. They've made us feel that we're unwelcome and that we don't have a voice and that we haven't got anything interesting to say. Yet we're still here, and we're still screaming, you know, from that dark place out in the wilderness. We have got stories to tell. And it's not about box ticking and whatever. It's about passion and talent and you know, finding a way to get your voice heard, no matter what. And I will do my best to help you while I'm here, while this channel is here. So that's my message to everybody watching. And please help spread that message, spread the word. Those filmmakers that have got in touch with Matt, get in touch with me. Let's talk. Let's have meetings. Let's see what we can start, because, you know, Matt has lit a fire under us here, and I think we need to take massive action. It's no good just talking about it. We have to do something. And I think there's, even though, yeah, you know, making a film is a solo experience. Writing a script is a solo experience to a degree. You know, you're following the filmmaker's vision, and sometimes that can be a selfish thing. However, as a collective of creative people, there are thousands of us across the world that are being ignored. And if we can come together and push certain initiatives, creative initiatives, I think we'll have more power than you would think.
Well, I think really
off my soapbox now, but there you go.
I think really the way Matt has, you know, beautifully articulated his, you know, his concerns, and the way Teresa and other people have responded to that, I think is, as I said before, we are now seeing, some kind of rumblings from people that with whom, this resonates so deeply. And it was beautifully articulated, Matt. It really was. And I think you, like I say, you came across with absolute grace. You really did. And thank you so much for voicing that. And Teresa, also thank you for for coming on first and foremost, but responding to Matt's concerns as well. I think it's really important that we have people like yourself that kind of form part of, I suppose, I hate to say and be premature and say movement, but dare I say at this point, movement.
Yeah,
I sure hope so, and hopefully not just from this sort of corner of the globe. And this, we're seeing articles like this for the first time. Academy Award, the two guys that won the biggest Academy Awards this year, articles going out going, these guys can't pay their rent.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think for the first, when has that ever happened? I think for the first time, I think people are waking up and going, this is, whether it's Australia, England, UK, Hollywood, this system's broken. What's happening to the filmmaking world? What has gone wrong that guys who are walking up accepting Oscars are worrying about their rent?
I think the cream that the top people seem to be skimming now, that layer of cream is just getting thicker and thicker, and they're just creaming. They are skimming so much off.
Whatever's left, they're taking the lot, and the creatives are left with nothing. And that seems to be, surely this is what I would like to ask that guy. They made a $6 million movie, I think, was Anora, US $6 million or something, right?
Yeah.
But they spent $18 million on its Oscar campaign.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yet the director was not paid for the 3 months of work he had to do to go on that campaign. What did you spend $18 million of? Of $18 million, you couldn't give this guy 10 grand to go on the road for 3 months?
Something smells funny about that, doesn't it?
If I had an $18 million Oscar campaign for my film, and they said, but you're doing this for free, I'd go like, what's the other 18 for? Can I have this much of that so I can go out and do this?
Yeah.
Something like you said, something smells wrong.
Give me $500,000 of that, and I'll go and make you another Oscar-worthy film.
That's right.
While we're on the road, I'll take a little camera crew and we'll shoot something en route.
It's just, this doesn't make any sense. What's happened when you spend more money on an Oscar campaign than the film itself, and you don't even pay the director? Now, look, if he was flush with money and he was like a multi-millionaire and he's like, yeah, I can do this, no problem. But if he's going, if he's tugging, guys, I can't pay my rent this month. How can I get to the Oscars? I can't fly there. I can't afford it.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
So it's not just.
Well, look, guys, we're going to have to wrap this up because I'm about to go on another stream on another YouTube channel to discuss the prestigious career of Kathleen Kennedy. Fun times. Yeah. So it's recorded, so you guys won't be able to watch it live. It'll come out in about 3 or 4 days. So this is part 4, by the way. We've been breaking down everything. And as a Star Wars fan, as you can see, I have a Lego Death Star here. I was invited to come on as a Star Wars fan who saw the original movie in 1977, and as someone who built their own personal 6-foot Super Star Destroyer back in the day. Listen, this has been fantastic. Matt, let's get you back soon to discuss.
I'll see if I can rally a whole bunch of Aussie filmmakers just like me. I probably know half a dozen of them that would all.
I think that would make a great panel, and we could augment that with another, another 4 or 5 people like Teresa who are slightly further down the ladder, but no less keen. And also, Teresa, I know you're on Australian time, and our streams are normally slightly earlier than this, but I'm guessing you're probably an insomniac because you're a slightly crazy filmmaker. So if you ever see us doing a stream and we're live and it's about something you're interested in, drop us a message.
On. Yes.
Yeah, you're on my Facebook now, so
yeah.
I've already recommended. I've recommended you reach out to Gary Bolter, who's a very proactive actor. He's worked with me twice. He's done a little bit with Matt as well. Really, really nice guy. Very talented. Highly recommended. And again, this will be what's great about this is we can connect people as well that are keen to get stuff done. Put you in touch with them. You know, people that we've already worked with that we know their reputation's good and that they're just decent people to have on a set. Which I think when you're an indie filmmaker, you know, no one wants a crew member who's a complete arsewipe that's just upsetting everybody else or actor in the same context. So it's great when we can recommend people to each other.
Absolutely.
Again, that's what the channel's here for. Listen, this has been great. I think people in the chat have been, you know, really very, very proactively talking both with each other and us. It's been great to hear people's stories. I love getting when we've got somebody relevant in the chat, I love bringing them on straight away. This is not the first time we've done that. This channel has got a bit of an open door policy like that. I'll probably regret saying that when we've got 20,000 subscribers. But anyway, long may that continue going forwards. Dave, you're welcome for the shout out earlier, mate. And it's always great to see some of the regulars in. So I'm going to play us out with the tune. My panelists, if you want to hang around for a couple of minutes afterwards, I will hang around for a little bit before I jump on to the other channel. But thank you so much, Matthew, for coming in. Thank you for the Inside Man for being my co-host, and thank you, Teresa, for representing Outcast Australia, Sydney, which now has two members, you and Gary. So
the clan is growing.
Grows. Once you've been on this channel, you're a member of the Outcast Creative. That's the way it goes. So, all right. Until then, we're going to be back. I think we'll be back on Tuesday with the Nielsen ratings, our weekly roundup of what we think you should and shouldn't watch on Netflix, Amazon, and all the rest. Probably some 1970s strange Italian films from the Inside Man.
Definitely.
Recommending you. We may or may not do a Chew the Fat this Sunday, but I think probably not because I've got quite a lot on at the moment, both in terms of film preparation and something else arrived today. My latest play, based on the making of The Magnificent Seven. It's not out yet. It's not out yet for people to buy. This is the proof copy, but it will be available on Amazon soon. And the rights will be available for people to stage this, of course, across the world if anyone's interested. So it'll be going on in the UK at some point in the not too distant future. I'll be talking about that another time. Yeah, I make films and I do plays. I do both. All right. So thanks again, everybody, for coming on. People in the chat saying stay strong, Matt. Couldn't agree more. And
thanks, guys. Also, for you UK you can now watch my film The Cost in the UK. It is available on Amazon Prime, so check it out if you want to be traumatized.
Amazon. Okay, The Cost is now available on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, in the UK. Finally.
That's fantastic to know. People do check that out. The trailer's available.
Only took a year.
Social media. Yeah. All right. We'll speak to you all again real soon.
Ciao, guys.